This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Hello, college basketball fans, and welcome to the Primetime Podcast. My name is Ricky Widmer, and as always, I'm joined by the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And Brandon, we've got a complete, and I mean complete, basketball podcast for you guys today. Not going to be talking any football. I know that the LSU story came out about how LSU's basically broke and that the football team could cease to exist. But looking into that, Brandon, basically it's the state has no money. So we thought that with basketball season where it is right now, there's bigger stories in college basketball.
But we both can say, as living in Illinois, we feel you, Louisiana. We feel you.
I feel your pain. I do. To impersonate former President Bill Clinton. But we're going to be talking Kentucky Wildcats. We're going to be talking Villanova Wildcats. And then some bracketology towards the end of the podcast. And Brandon, the thing with Kentucky, and I don't know if it was just watching them this weekend against South Carolina, but since losing to Kansas and then on the road to Tennessee, this is a team that has won 3 straight, has blown out each opponent in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. They still got a lot of games to play. But the thing that I'm thinking right now is Kentucky getting momentum at the right time heading into March?
Well, I got to first start off with something that I've been wanting to say all night is I got to say I think it's a record by John Calipari getting tossed out of the game 136 seconds into the game. Mm-hmm. Coach, way to go, buddy. I love the enthusiasm. And yes, Kentucky is getting hot at the right time. Currently number 14 in the AP poll. Not sure where they're falling in ours. Make sure you check out the video that Ricky Widmer will be putting up for our rankings, but they are getting hot at the right time. You just mentioned the games that they just won, the teams they beat, Florida, Georgia at home, and on the road at South Carolina. I think that those wins are huge. I honestly think that Calipari getting tossed out just shows how he wants to spark his team, and he is for his team right now. This is a team that everyone thought at the beginning of the season, towards the end of the beginning, people are looking at Kentucky going, this is nothing like it was last year. Well, and you're right. It's not a darn thing like it was last year.
No, it's not.
It might be more dangerous come tournament time.
Well, and coming into the season, the big thing, everyone was, maybe it was because of last season and with how dominant the Wildcats were, but Skal Labissiere was supposed to be a big piece, hasn't been as big of a piece stat-wise, only about 7 points, 3 rebounds per game in 16.8 minutes per game. Really the big guys at the top have been Jamal Murray, Tyler Ulis being the leader of this team, and I mean, it's just this is not what we are used to Kentucky being. Kentucky, for the first time, doesn't seem to me like, oh, you know what? These are just a ton of freshman studs that are going to come out right away. I mean, Murray and Ulis, of course, Ulis is a sophomore, Murray is a freshman, but you have Alex Poltrice, who's a senior, and Skal Labissiere along with Murray as a freshman. But it's not like here's the starting 5 of studded freshmen that are all going to come out together for Kentucky. It's a little bit different this year.
Yeah, I think we have a pretty good group, though, here in Kentucky. And I think that we really saw some of the best out of them on Saturday at South Carolina. And to start things off, it was a little back and forth in the very early goings of the game. But then Kentucky, of course, able to pull away for the victory. But I like the different group of guys, the different core of guys, it seems like, than what we saw last year with Kentucky. And I said before your comments, Ricky, is that I think this team may be more dangerous this year. And it's because last year, so many teams, every team that played them was gunning for them. Mm-hmm. Who can give Kentucky its first loss? Who can do it? Who's going to be the team? We want to be the team. We want to be the team. This year, Kentucky's flying more under the radar. Predicted right now in Joe Lunardi's bracketology is a number 4 seed in the East. And I think that because they're flying under the radar and they're not like what they were in the forefront last year, they have more of an opportunity, more of a shot to, I think, go even farther than what they went last year in the tournament because of the fact that people aren't looking right now at Kentucky. They're looking at all these other teams. Who's held the number 1 spot? They're looking at Oklahoma. They're looking at Kansas. They're looking at Xavier, Villanova, all these other teams. Kentucky's starting to get lost a little bit towards the bottom. This is kind of how I look at Duke this year. A lot of people, I think, have written off Duke. They're not going to be much, a 7 and 8, whatever.
I just don't like Grayson Allen. That's the only thing with me and Duke.
Here's the thing, though, is that so many times we've seen Duke as a 1 seed, a 2 seed. They make it to maybe round 2. They don't do anything past that. I was talking with a Duke fan earlier this week. I said to him, you know that you guys are in the best spot you've ever been in. You know that, right? And they said, yeah, we are. Because when you go in as a 7, you go in as an 8 seed, you have a much better opportunity to go farther.
Well, you can compare
than some of these higher seeds that they've had.
You can compare Duke in a way to Kentucky because they've got, to me, with Duke and with Kentucky, it's same song, different dance is how I'm describing it. Because with Duke, who was their best player last year? The number 1 player who came out, got drafted by the T-Bulls. A little bit of a point guard that I wish the Bulls would have drafted. Last name Jones, I'll give you that.
Oh, Tyus.
Jones.
Did you say number 1?
No, I said.
I thought you said drafted number 1. I'm like,
no, he was their number 1 player last
Tyus
year.
Jones, yes.
I mean, Winslow did great too, but Tyus Jones was the number 1 for Duke.
Yes.
This year, your number 1 player is Grayson Allen, so that's why I think Duke is not at the top of the rankings because Grayson Allen isn't the same thing as Tyus Jones. Is Grayson Allen good? Yes, but it's a different kind of good. With Kentucky, it's a totally different team. I'm comparing this. I saw a headline today that said Kentucky in similar spot as it was in 2014 season. And I looked it up, Brandon. Right at this point, it was their game on Saturday, September 5th or February 15th. They had just lost a 10-point contest to then number 3 Florida. Since that game, they were 19-6, 9-3 in the SEC. They finished the season losing only 3 more games, going 22-9, 12-6 in the regular season, made it to they won 2, lost 1 in the SEC tournament. As an 8 seed in the men's tournament that year, how far did they go? Do you remember? That was the year they upset number 1 Wichita State, or 1 seed Wichita State. They beat 2-seeded Michigan, 2-seeded Wisconsin. They lost to number 7 UConn in a very special game. They made it all the way. Do you remember how far they made it? All the way to the championship.
I was going to say they went all the way to the championship because this was what,
2014.
2014, yeah, absolutely. I remember watching that game.
This was the UConn, Kentucky, back when they had Dakari Johnson was their center. They had the Harrison twins. Paul Thrice was on that team still. Wooly Cauley-Stein was still there. They're in a similar situation as that year. They're sitting with the same record, can come out with the same exact record, maybe a little bit better, because in 2014, they still had to play number 1 Florida one more time, and they lost to South Carolina and Arkansas, whereas this year, Tennessee's already beaten them once. Texas A&M, we don't really know, and Florida, they're not the same Florida team, so besides Tennessee, Texas A&M, and LSU, Kentucky's in a really good spot this year to maybe sweep the rest of their games and go into the SEC tournament with only 6 losses on the year.
I was just going to say that I think that's one thing that I personally was overlooking. You know, I go right to the tournament, the big one. But I, sometimes overlook that conference tournament as well. And if Kentucky makes them a nice run there, which I just don't see them not being able to, because right now the team that may be most competitive within their division, within their conference, LSU. I mean, I don't fear South Carolina. I certainly don't fear Texas A&M, who has shown to be a pretender. I do not fear a lot of these other teams. Florida, maybe they've had some spots this year where they've looked good. Their win against West Virginia, but other than that, I'm not scared of any of these teams. I think Kentucky shouldn't be either. I don't think they are. And Kentucky has a really good shot of being able to win that conference tournament. I just don't see them not being able to get at least to the championship.
There's only one game that could be upset worthy with Kentucky, and this isn't an opponent that I'm scared of. It's an opponent that when you come in Saturday, February 27th, if you're the Wildcats, Coach Cal has to have his boys ready to play, and that's the 27th when they go into Vanderbilt. Because Vanderbilt's a team that has kind of snuck in some wins late. The one that I'm thinking of is over that pretender team that you mentioned in Texas A&M, but they beat Texas A&M. Yeah, they lose to Ole Miss, but they have some quality wins over a Tennessee team that beat Kentucky. They've beaten Florida. Yeah, they got blown out by Texas, but that was a non-conference game. This is a team that's kind of picking up some steam late, and that's the game for Kentucky where I'm like, if you come in and try to overshadow and say, whatever, we're going to win this game, Vandy could be the one to upset you.
I think Kentucky, the loss, though, that they have to look at and go, man, we played well. We put it all out on the floor. Just a couple weekends back on the road at Kansas, they lost 90-84. I remember you and I saying what a great game that was. Kentucky, though, they can play with a top team like Kansas. You're good. Mm-hmm. You stick with them, you're good. And I think that Kentucky the rest of the way, like you said Vanderbilt is a team to watch out for. But I think the rest of the way, like you'll also agree, Kentucky looks pretty good to win the rest of its games.
And right now with Kentucky, where they fall in Joe Lunardi's current bracket, is there a 4 seed? Right now he has them 4th in the East. So some other notable teams in their bracket: number 1 Villanova, 5th seeded Texas, West Virginia's in that bracket, Maryland is in that side of the bracket. So with Kentucky, it's not a complete same song, different dance, because yes, the year that I brought up, they were an 8 seed, but this year they could be a 4 seed.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that they have a really good shot right now of being a 4 seed, keeping it, like I said earlier, and you just mentioned too. That's what Joe Lunardi has them right now as a 4 seed in the East. And I just, if they do not lose again, they lock up a 4 seed for sure, if not possibly better. Final thing to talk about here with Kentucky. It is the sophomore phenom, Tyler Ulis. In this past month, Ricky, he has been dominant. He's averaged about 21 points a game. He's looking at 7.5 assists, and he's made 17 of 45 threes. Against South Carolina, 27 points, 12 assists. He only turned the ball over 1 time. This kid has been too good. He has been really, really good.
Well, and my biggest thing with Tyler Ulis, and it was the announcers were talking about this during the South Carolina broadcast, is he's developed into kind of an extension of Coach Cal on the court. And as a coach, especially in a young player, and I know in basketball, college basketball, because of the one and done rule, you usually get that, okay, he's an extension of the coach, unless we're talking about a junior or a senior. Usually it's freshmen that go out there. Ben Simmons, they come in, they leave. They come in, they leave. Derrick Rose, he's in, he's gone. That's what we usually get. And to get this sophomore who is like, okay, I am going to be an extension of my coach on the court. And against South Carolina, that was important because, like you said, not even 2 minutes into the game, Coach Cale decides I'm going to go crazy on the ref because I'm not happy with the physical play down low of them not calling fouls against the Gamecocks, that I'm going to get myself tossed. So even though Coach Cale was not in the game, he was kind of there with Ulis being present in that game, being that extension on the court.
Here's a quote from Calipari on his Saturday ejection. "They've proven that they don't need me, and I love it." John Calipari.
Oh, as a coach, that's what you want to see.
That is the epitome of Calipari and his team.
That's what you want if you're a Kentucky Wildcat fan, is you want this team playing like they don't need Coach Cal out there.
But like you said, this is why I brought it up, because it wraps right around into what you were saying. They don't need him right there because they've got him on the court. They've got him there in a guy like Ulis to lead the team as just a sophomore. They have the energy that their coach brings. They've got it. Calipari has instilled it in them. And then when they see their coach taking one for the team, sticking up and standing up for them, you know, it doesn't take much for the team to go out there and fight for him.
Well, and another thing I'm going to throw out there is we've been talking about March and the tournament, which is coming up. My favorite time of the year is coming up. And the number one thing, there are two things I look for in teams come March: guard play and how well you shoot the three. Because those are the two things that are most beneficial. Think about the Baylor team that I want to say Baylor, like last year or 2 years ago. What did they do very well? They shot the three very well, and it kept them in games. And R.J. Hunter from last year, terrific three-point shooter, pulled off the upset for Georgia State. So 3 points and guard play. Kemba Walker, Shabazz Napier, Derrick Rose, some of these Russell Westbrook, some of these guards that are coming into your head that have had some great kind of March Madness moments. Why didn't Adam Morrison get all the way? Because he wasn't a great guard.
Because he never cut his hair.
And because he cried. And he had the mustache, the gross-looking mustache.
I think that the reason that he didn't, for the sheer fact they didn't cut his hair and he did not get rid of that mustache, there was a lot of bad energy, a lot of bad juju, all locked up in there, and all he needed to do was cut it, and it would have flown right out. They would have won it all. But, I think
But my point was that Ulis being a great guard is going to help Kentucky in March Madness.
And I got to be honest with you, Ricky, I am surprised you did not say defense.
Well, I mean, with defense, March Madness, it's always late. I think it's always about that last 2 minutes, especially when the game is close. And what's the most important part? The guard play and the three-pointers. The defense is going to come, but really it's, okay, we're down by 6. We need our guard. I need my three-pointer to make a few shots, and that's why we get so many of the last-second shots to go. I mean, you think of the 2014 season that we talked about, that championship between UConn and Kentucky. The guards for Kentucky that year, the Harrison twins and James Young. The two guards on the other side that we were talking about, Shabazz Napier and Ryan Boatwright. Forgot about Ryan Boatwright until I just saw his name on there. Those are the guys that usually we talk about late in March, are the guards that just pick it up for their team and take off.
And Ricky, it is just like you to talk all about
the guards.
Offense.
Yep.
You
tell me about the defense then, Brandon.
Offensive-minded through and through. No, we're going to leave it right there.